Welcome back, everybody. Well, welcome to the bomb site. If you've not been here before, we actually lived in this little garage space while we built the house over there. Well, it was always designed to be a woodworking shop, but we made it work and camped out in it while we were building the house. But if I can find some old footage, I'll stick it in here and show you what it looked like when we lived in it. But since we've moved into the house, I've not really done anything over here. It's just been a catch-all and junk's thrown and strode everywhere. But it's time to make it more useful and get this mess straightened up. I piped all of my ductwork system for a dust system underneath the concrete. So it stubs up here, it runs under, it's stubbed up here, and I've got power run over here, and then it comes up over here at the wall, and that will turn into a miter saw bay that will go right here. But I'm going to continue my ductwork up and bring it over here and put a drop on it. That way, if you ever need anything on this end of the table, you'll have it. But I'll show you where it goes. Welcome to bomb site number 2. The catch-all for all the junk that you probably will never need. But here's where my trunk line comes up outside the garage. So that has a 6-inch main line, and then I wide up with a 4-inch pipe. But I've just got a little, I don't know, horse and a half, two horsepower dust collector, which we're gonna have to upgrade this. But I will plumb it in straight here. But I wanted my dust collector outside, that way you're not listening to it run on the inside. So first project at hand, let's try to get it cleaned up just a little bit. I'm not gonna get everything organized, but we'll get everything halfway cleaned up. Then we will try to go ahead and pipe our ductwork up, at least on this side. We'll leave this for another day. But then I'd like to go ahead and get my miter saw mounted in that slot. That way it'll be flush with the tabletop so you can slide stuff in there and cut it. But I did buy a new miter saw, and I'll show you the reason why. These are just standard cabinets, which I made sure I got cabinets with pretty heavy drawer slides on it. That way, you know, when you load them up with tools, they'll be able to hold. But I did not want anything coming out way out in the floorway, because I'll end up making a table here, and I've got everything run here for my table saw, which will set back there, which I have it oriented to where if you rip anything long, it'll go right down the hallway. So I didn't want anything that would stick way out, so I looked at different miter saws, and the Bosch, it's a 12-inch sliding saw, but if you notice, it's got this mechanism that is not like the, you know, the Dewalts, and I've had Dewalt miter saws for a long time, but their 12-inch saw has the 2 arms that go back, so the saw would have been sitting way out here, and I didn't want to take up that much floor space. So when this thing is not in use, I can swing it around, and basically I'm sitting on a 25-inch countertop. It's not going to get in the way. Well, it looks a little bit better in here now, but it's still a work in progress. But first project at hand is we have to get our dust system. We got to get our main trunk up through this corner up here, and then we're going to run it out the walls. But when I laid this all out and laid this dust system out, obviously nothing was here since I put it under the concrete. So I can remember sitting here thinking, well, scoot it over, Travis, but I didn't want to mess with my cabinets. You know, it'd be sitting halfway where my cabinet was going to sit, so I bumped it out. But I'm close. So what I've got to do is I've got to come up here, but I've got to get this pipe back in this corner and bring it up straight. But as you can see, I've got about an inch overhang, so I got to try to drill this out so that pipe will fit neatly back in that corner. And that way, when the saw rotates, it will not hit it in the back corner. All right, I've devised the plan. There's just no good way to get in here to cut that out. So here's what I'm gonna use. Now that brings on another set of problems. How in the world are you gonna hold it? All right, here's what I'm thinking. I had an old block out there that I have cut the same height as the countertop, which I need to hold that good and steady. So I will add a block here. I've cut a taper out here on the end where I can drive it down. And that should hold that in place. I'll lay out my bit. We'll get us a mark for a center line. See if we can cut this out without tearing something up. Well, I don't know what I could have used to done any better job than that. My block moved on me just a little bit. Now I'll use a prettier pipe than this, but I think I can live with that. Now next on the agenda, when I set my refrigerator here, when we were living in here, I cut that pipe off flush with the floor. So now I don't have anything to tie onto it. So I'm going to cut essentially a coupling ring, and I will slice it to where I can get it to fold in to where it'll slip down in that. I'll glue it, and then my pipe will slide down over the top of it. And then I've got to bring it up, but I have to get it to bend back this way and back that way to let it come up that corner. So I'm gonna try a heat gun and see if we can manipulate it back in that corner and keep a straight line up here to that 8-foot row of screws, and then we'll take off left and right. All right, I got my coupling cut, ready to slide down in there. I used a table saw, and I would have shown you how I cut it with a table saw, but the table saw police would have probably been standing at my door. So if you're wondering, this is a 4-inch piece of pipe. To get it to go down inside that 4-inch pipe, I took approximately 3/4 of an inch out, and it fits in there nice and tight. Now, I didn't want this green pipe run up and across the wall, so I'm going to use this white thin wall 4-inch drain pipe. But I did just notice the wall thickness is a little different. So this is just a little loose over my coupling, but I think we'll be okay. I didn't have a heat gun, so I went by Harbor Freight and picked up one of these Hercules heat guns. But I'll tell you, in recent times, I've bought some stuff from Harbor Freight and have had pretty good luck with it. So let's give it a shot. It's got a couple, I guess, shields that go over the end. Let's see how it works. No, nowhere near. This little thing works good, but I've got too much surface area all the way around. I just can't get it hot enough. So let's call in the big guns. Well, if plan A and plan B don't work, try plan C. So I used that old pipe that I screwed up with that torch. See if I could manufacture my own joint. Let's stick it down in here and see if that'll work. Well, I think if I use some round pipe instead of this distorted stuff, I think I can make that work. Now, I cut that on a 20-degree angle So I'll probably step it back to a 10. That way I got a little straighter shot up here before it turns back. But I think I can make that work. I'll get the seam glued together, and then we'll put a piece of duct tape around that, like an air duct tape. I don't think it'll go in place. Well, let's see if she fits. Well, that wraps phase 1 up. I've got my main trunk coming up. I will catch my miter saw with this. I'll have to get a reducer to tie in to run the miter saw here. Went ahead and branched off and put a drop here. Hook a small hose to it, whatever it may be. Hook something to a sander even if you wanted to. And then I took one over to the right of this bay. Same thing for the other end. You never know what you might need to hook up, but at least we've got it there in place. Over on the other side, I went ahead and had one joint of pipe left, so I went ahead and mounted it. I will tie into this one. I'll probably take one that way, and then I'll run my trunk down, probably all the way down the drill press. You never know. I'll probably end up with a joiner and a planer in here, so I can figure out later on how I need to tie into that. But we got the rough draft in place at least. Well, I'm glad I got this started. You know, you can get everything cleaned up, but as soon as you run a miter saw and cut 3 or 4 boards, you got dust all over everything. And I'll show you one thing that I'm going to add to this saw. Saw this, I think, on Facebook, but it's from a company called Shop Nation. But what it is, it's an addition for dust collection. So this will go in here and mount, basically puts that dust collection right there behind the blade. So hopefully that'll help us reduce that airborne dust. Just to give it a test run, I've got a 4-inch dryer vent hose. And I've just got it hooked to one side, but let's see if this thing at least get a little suction inside. And this is the reason I wanted this thing outside. The hum of a dust collector. Oh, the peace and quiet. Now, I know you're going to be always running a piece of equipment and you're going to have noise when you're running the dust collector most of the time, but there's times where, you know, you're in between boards to where it may be sitting there running for a minute or two without you actually doing something, cutting wood. So it's nice to have that outside. And the other reason I wanted it outside as well, and I wanted my dust line under the concrete, is I didn't want to be tripping over these pipes and hoses and them strung everywhere, so it just makes for a neater job. Well, to show you that it's at least got a little bit of suction, and that's coming through that little 4-inch dryer hose or vent hose, and so I think we could improve on that. But you can hear we got suction here. Let's see if it'll suck a napkin up. Hey, we get her tuned up, I think we can get rid of the dust. So if you got any recommendations on what kind of dust collector and the horsepower, I've been leaning toward a 3 horsepower, but I think once I get a 6-inch line tied in outside and I get something with a little more oomph, I believe I can suck the dust up. But this will end part 1. The next time we will go ahead and get that miter saw mounted, and I may try to take that sheave off of that dust collector out there to where I can tie a 6-inch line into it. We may just test it to see how it's going to work. But anyway, if you watch this one, I appreciate it, and we'll catch you later.